A regional war turned one of the world's busiest air corridors into a zone of sudden reversals. On March 19, 2026, the head of the International Air Transport Association said, the widening Middle East conflict would push up ticket prices and leave no winners for airlines. That warning came one day after one of the clearest operational signs of the crisis. Dozens of long-haul flights to Dubai were forced to turn back, divert, or land far from the destinations, after drone alerts and temporary airport closures across the Gulf. At first, this looked like an aviation disruption, but it was already becoming something wider. The story was no longer only about oil and shipping. It had become a live disruption of the air network that connects Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Gulf. And once a system like that stops behaving normally, the effects do not stay local. The disruption was visible in the air. Reuters reported that Emirates flight EK-10 from London turned back over Saudi Arabia and returned to Gatwick, completing a 9,100-kilometer round trip without reaching Dubai. Around 30 Emirates flights heading to Dubai International were also ordered back or rerouted. Some flights that would normally arrive in under 7 hours ended up flying for 11.5 hours before returning. Another Emirates service from Shanghai reached Dubai only after an 11,000-kilometer, 20-hour journey that included a stop in Bangladesh. This was not a timetable delay. It was a failure of normal route certainty. And that matters, because long-haul aviation depends on predictability. Aircraft, crews, cargo, fuel, connections, and airport slots all move on the assumption that the network will remain legible while the plane is already in the air. When that assumption breaks, the disruption spreads faster than the headline suggests. Dubai sits between Europe and Asia, and Gulf carriers connect large volumes of traffic between South Asia, East Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. So a closure there does not stay local for long. A flight from London, Dublin, Shanghai, Tokyo, New York, or Johannesburg can all be drawn into the same disturbance, because the Gulf functions as one of the operating centers of long-haul aviation. But the visible reversals were only the surface of the problem. Reuters said around 30,000 flights to and from Middle East airports had been cancelled as of March 17. Emirates alone had cancelled more than 2,000 flights, equal to 54% of its scheduled services. Qatar Airways had cancelled 93%, and Etihad 79%. Those numbers show that the disruption was no longer about one dramatic turnback. It was already affecting the wider operating logic of the region's air network. The system map is simple enough to name. Passenger and cargo flights normally funnel through major Gulf hubs, such as Dubai International, and then move onward through regional airspace corridors. When those corridors become unsafe, airlines do not simply run late. They turn back, divert to substitute airports, or fly longer paths, with more fuel burn, weaker schedule reliability, and less room for error. Reuters reported that Emirates shifted dozens of services away from Dubai International to Dubai World Central, Abu Dhabi, Muscat, Jeddah, Cairo, and Medina. That is the named infrastructure behind the headline. The pressure points are now easier to see. Gulf airspace can close with little warning. Hub airports can be disrupted by missile and drone alerts. Aircraft already in the air can be forced into marathon detours. Fuel costs rise as oil stays above $100 a barrel. Capacity tightens because planes and crews are no longer where the network expects them to be. And this is where the story moves beyond aviation. Immediate effects appear in cancellations, diversions, and ticket pricing. The next effects move into cargo reliability, route planning, and airline capacity decisions. After that, the disruption reaches trade, tourism, urgent deliveries, and household budgets. What began as reversals above the Gulf was becoming something larger. A disruption of a flight system that millions of people normally experience as smooth, distant, and invisible. The first household signal is simple. Travel becomes harder to trust and more expensive to buy. Air tickets are the clearest channel. Reuters reported on March 19 that the head of IATA expects the conflict to push up ticket prices, and that airlines are already shifting capacity. When flights turn back, divert, or operate on longer routes, carriers burn more fuel, use more crew time, and lose the aircraft hours they plan to sell elsewhere. That cost does not stay inside an airline spreadsheet. It moves into fares, fewer available seats, and weaker schedule reliability. For households, that means a trip that looked routine can suddenly become longer, costlier, or impossible to complete on the planned day. The second channel is timing. Reuters described dozens of flights to nowhere and long diversions to places such as Cairo, Karachi, Dhaka, Islamabad, and Italy. For passengers, that means missed meetings, missed connections, extra hotel costs, and time lost in transit. For families, it means airport pickups that never happen, work schedules that slip, and uncertainty about whether a same-day trip is still same day. Even when airlines restore service later, the temporary breakdown of timing can be enough to change behavior. People delay trips. Companies cut non-essential travel. Tourists hesitate. Cargo is the quieter channel, but it matters just as much. Passenger aircraft carry freight in their bellies, and Gulf hubs handle a large share of transfer traffic between continents. When flights are cancelled, rerouted, or shifted to secondary airports, urgent goods become harder to move on time. Medicine, electronics, industrial parts, and high-value deliveries can all be delayed or repriced. The public often experiences that later, not as an aviation story, but as slower delivery, tighter stock, or a higher final price. The delay spreads outward through logistics, not only through tourism. Fuel makes the effect broader. Reuters said crude prices stayed above $100 a barrel, as a tax on Gulf oil infrastructure rattled the aviation market. Airlines do not buy conflict in the abstract. They buy jet fuel. So even flights that avoid direct closure zones still become more expensive to operate. A longer route, plus higher fuel, plus weaker slot certainty, is enough to reshape network decisions. Households then feel that in tickets first, and in air-shipped goods later. There is also a labor side to this. Pilots, crews, airport workers, and ground staff all rely on networks staying predictable. Once the network starts producing turnbacks, diversions, and emergency repositioning, the strain moves into duty limits, staffing, and airport handling. That means recovery is not just a matter of reopening a runway. The whole system has to reassemble itself in the right sequence. For travelers, that feels like rolling uncertainty. For airlines, it feels like lost efficiency. The household version stays plain. A hub closes. A flight turns back. A connection is missed. A cargo shipment slips. A ticket rises. Then ordinary people start changing plans, spending more, or waiting longer. This is why the daily life layer matters. Most viewers will never see the route map inside an airline control center. But they live inside its consequences every time global air travel stops feeling automatic. This event sits inside a hidden machine of hubs, airspace corridors, fleet rotation, cargo transfer, and timetable precision. The machine begins with hubs. Dubai International is not simply a city airport. Reuters described it as the world's busiest airport for international passengers. That matters because a global hub is not only a place where trips start or end. It is a transfer engine. Aircraft arrive from Europe, Asia, Africa, and North America, unload passengers and freight, then feed onward flights in tightly timed waves. When that kind of hub is interrupted, disruption spreads far beyond the airport itself, because many journeys passing through it were never supposed to stop there for long in the first place. The second part of the machine is airspace. Flights to Dubai and other Gulf destinations use structured corridors over Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Sea, and neighboring states. Those corridors are designed around fuel efficiency, handoffs between air traffic authorities, and safe spacing between aircraft. When drone and missile alerts force sudden route changes, or temporary closures, the problem is not only that one plane is delayed. The operating geometry of the network changes. A long-haul flight that can no longer land where expected must either turn back, divert to a substitute airport, or continue on a much longer path. That breaks the network's normal rhythm. The substitute infrastructure explains the system's resilience. Reuters reported that Emirates moved flights away from Dubai International to Dubai World Central, Al Ain, Abu Dhabi, Muscat, Jeddah, Cairo, and Medina. These airports matter because they become relief valves when the main hub is unstable. But they are not perfect substitutes. They do not automatically have the same slots, gate capacity, maintenance support, crew basing, transfer volume, or passenger handling design as the primary hub they are replacing. The machine can bend. It does not stay seamless. Fleet rotation is another hidden layer. A plane that turns back to Gatwick after 11.5 hours is not just one disrupted flight. It is also an aircraft that is now in the wrong place for its next assignment, with a crew that may be near legal duty limits, and passengers who must be rebooked into an already stressed network. Reuters reported more than 2,000 Emirates cancellations since February 28, and tens of thousands across the region. Those numbers show that the hidden machine underneath commercial aviation is not only aircraft in the sky. It is aircraft position, crew timing, airport sequencing, and onward connectivity. Cargo is part of the same anatomy. Gulf hubs do not only move people. They move time-sensitive goods between continents. That means the system under the headline is also about trade. When IATA says there are no winners, and capacity may be cut if jet fuel becomes constrained, it is describing pressure on the wider movement system, not only on holiday traffic. Airlines link global business, not just tourism. So the hidden machine is clear enough to name. Dubai International is the main transfer node. Gulf Airspace is the routing fabric. Dubai World Central, Abu Dhabi, Muscat, Jeddah, Cairo, and Medina are the substitute nodes. Fleet rotation and crew rules are the timing logic. Belly cargo is the commercial layer. Fuel cost is the pressure input. When all of that works together, flying looks ordinary. When it stops working smoothly, a regional conflict becomes a global mobility problem. Pressure spreads through behavior, long before every passenger sees a final cancellation notice. The event comes first. A drone strike or missile alert forces a temporary closure, or makes arrival unsafe. Then comes hesitation. Airline operations centers stop trusting the route they expected to use. Crews wait for new instructions. Dispatchers review alternates. Aircraft already airborne are held, redirected, or turned back. That first pause matters because the network's timing starts slipping, before the airport is formally closed for very long. Hesitation then becomes rerouting. Reuters described flights turning back over Saudi Arabia, services diverting to Cairo, Karachi, Dhaka, Islamabad, and Italy. This is the first clear behavior under stress. The network tries to keep moving by using other nodes. But rerouting creates new pressure because substitute airports and routes inherit traffic they were not designed to absorb at that moment. Rerouting turns into triage. Airlines decide which flights to protect, which to cancel, and which to delay. They defend core routes first. They protect passengers already in the air before those still waiting to depart. They reposition aircraft where possible. They also start adjusting capacity. Reuters reported that IATA expects capacity shifts now, and possible cuts later if the conflict drags on and jet fuel supply tightens. This is priority allocation in plain form. The system serves what it can serve first. Then cost arrives. Longer routes burn more fuel. More diversions mean more airport charges, handling costs, and crew complexity. Oil above $100 raises the cost base again. Ticket prices start rising, and cargo economics tighten. That is where the crisis stops looking like an airport problem, and starts looking like an inflation problem in motion. People who never fly still end up paying through goods that move by air, or through businesses that rely on predictable travel. Then uncertainty spreads wider. Travelers stop assuming the timetable is reliable. Firms delay trips. Cargo planners add buffers. Airlines shorten confidence in future schedules because the next drone alert can remake the map again. That uncertainty changes behavior before every visible disruption appears. The public sees the turnback. The industry feels the confidence loss first. This is the sequence. Event becomes hesitation. Hesitation becomes rerouting. Rerouting becomes triage. Triage becomes higher cost. Higher cost becomes uncertainty. Uncertainty becomes wider system pressure. By then the machine is still operating, but not normally. It is operating defensively. And once a transport network starts acting defensively, the strain reaches passengers, prices, cargo, and planning faster than most viewers expect. This event made the hidden architecture of air travel visible. Most people think of flying as an airline brand, a boarding gate, and a seat number. But ordinary mobility depends on places and systems most travelers never name: Dubai International, Dubai World Central, Abu Dhabi, Muscat, Jeddah, Cairo, Medina, and the air corridors between them. These are not background details. They are the roots and nodes that keep a global transfer machine functioning. When one part fails, the rest of the system starts improvising. There is resilience in that design. Aircraft can divert. Secondary airports can absorb some traffic. Airlines can reposition fleets. But there is fragility too. A hub is not easily replaced. A turned-back aircraft is not just late. It is in the wrong place, with the wrong timing, inside a system built on precise sequence. The same is true for cargo, crew, and onward connections. That may be the deeper lesson of this story. The Gulf crisis is not only changing oil flows. It is also showing how much normal life depends on route certainty and systems that look effortless only when they are stable. What does it mean when one conflict can turn the everyday promise of air travel into a network of reversals, detours, and doubt?